People know me, my neighbors know me pretty well. Even you are getting to know me pretty well. And whenever anyone finds anything in the trash, especially if they find a lot of something in the trash, they say, "Pierre will take it." So one of my neighbors, a photographer of rock stars and people like that, a professional photographer, saw on the side of the road a vodka box that contained stacks of photographs, and they were all, he thought, with a cursory glance, he thought they all were studio 8x10 glossy kind of things that stars would sign and send out to their adoring fans. So among the stack, when I looked through it, there were these manila envelopes that had the names or labels of what was inside. Thoughts of Me, PHOTSOFME was one of them, and I'll show you what me looked like. But I love how this guy used his L's. He never bothered with the horizontal. So Valley of the Dolls, Valley of the Dolls, and this had pictures of the people that were in Valley of the Dolls. But what was weird about these things, he would have 8x10 glossy photos that must have been expensive to produce back then, of magazine covers of Lucille Ball. Not the actual magazine cover, not the actual photo, but a photograph, an 8x10 glossy of the magazine cover. Explain that to me. So then there were things like this. Clayton Moore, The Lone Ranger. And this is not an original photograph. It's a laser print or something. Maybe he had the original and this was his backup copy in case the house burned down. I have no idea, but the only one that I could find that looked original is this one, Lily Tomlin, because it is on, well, this is her signature, and this is not a color copy. Otherwise you'd see blues and stuff up here. You just see black and white. It's a shitty print, but it looks like it's an actual signature. So I have Lily Tomlin's. This is how I cut my hair. I used to cut my hair like this. Now I use a trimmer, but it's by Braille. So I should have, you're saying, Pierre, why didn't you leave it in the trash? Well, I couldn't. This is the man that collected all of these things. He reminds me of the Michelin Man from the neck up. I mean, the whole Michelin Man body would fit in this sort of shape. And there's a lot of chin there, and not much of there's a lot of neck and not very much of a chin. I bet his profile looks like it would be almost completely smooth with a little nose sticking out. Anyway, the reason I'm keeping these things is the back. Well, the back of some photo papers is this glossy, it's not glossy, it's semi-gloss, it's sort of a matte finish, but it's really sort of fun to draw on because the ink doesn't do anything but sort of sit on top. It's like my paint swatch paper, and you can just sort of slide this around, and the the ink has an iridescence in some cases to it. It's really kind of neat. And it's just the relationship of the ink and ink sort of, rather than being absorbed by the paper, it sits on top, and then the ink, the elements that make up the actual ink kind of separate. Sometimes you can see, if you use blue ink, I had a Prussian blue Pelican ink at one time, which when it would dry and separate, the very edges of my shaded line would almost turn an iridescent red color. And it was really quite fun to see. And you can see how, well, you can't see. It's very wet. And it's just fun. You know, I could sit here all day, and I have done such things. I can sit all day long and doodle. And what does this mean? This means nothing. This is a meaningful piece of art, but you can still own it. Add to shopping cart, $1 million. I'm not done yet though, so if I finished it, it would be $2 million. Unfinished, rare unfinished Pierre Gustafson, well, hardly rare. Unfinished Pierre Gustafson work. The rare one would be the one that was finished. Pierre Gustafson finishes a piece of art. Headline news. Details at 10. So don't throw out the pictures that you find in the trash. Turn them over. Usually the back might say something like, you know, explain what's on the front, you know. And it might be completely unimportant. It might be, you know, baby's first communion, or Hindenburg explodes. You know, things that aren't needed by you or anyone else. The history of the human race, when finally digitized and available for anyone to look at, does not need that picture. In addition to that picture, I mean, someone had to have, the box, the vodka box did not make it out on the curb by itself. Someone had to put the things in the vodka box and then bring them to the curb and then walk away. Presumably they were walking away. They didn't go back to get another box to bring with them. In Minnesota, my brothers both go out when it's big trash day in the various suburbs of Minneapolis, and there's carloads of people going through people's trash on that day. That's when you can bring out the refrigerator and the lazy boy recliner and the stuff like that. And my brother found one time a very expensive, really ugly, but he found out that it was an expensive modern, mid-century modern Italian lamp, floor lamp, which looked as if it was meant to be part of a display for a dog bone. It was dog bone in shape. Anyway, he went online, and you could, the one he found in the trash, you could buy online, add to shopping cart for like $10,000 or something. So you can find good things, but you also can find a bunch of things that aren't very good. He has in his front yard I think 8 lawnmowers. When I saw them, before I could say anything, he said, "Don't say a word." Okay, whatever. Anyway, big trash day. He's looking at trash and he sees, this trash on the side of the road. And there's all these other people with their rider rental trucks and their big station wagons and SUVs all competing with each other to quickly see what they can get for nothing and then go to the next spot. So there's all sort of jockeying to be first in line. And if Todd sees someone at 1452 Maple Street, he'll go further up to 1456 where he can be the first at the virginal pile. So he sees at 1456 Maple, he sees this great, ladder. He looked at it. He could see that it wasn't broken. It still could hold a person. It was a nice 10-foot ladder. So he throws it in the back of the truck and trailer. My brother goes with a trailer. And then he continues on to 1462 Maple. And suddenly this truck catches up with him. "You got my ladder." And Todd said, "Well, I was there first. I got it. It's in my truck." "No, you got my ladder. I'm there doing a paint job." Or whatever he was doing. So Todd gave it back. So maybe this box of pictures I got was the first load of something coming out on the side of the street so that they could load up the van. But I don't think so. These looked as if they were thrown out. And they were thrown out by who? They were thrown out by this person's, presumably, next of kin. And this box didn't just have Xeroxes of photographs on the covers of magazines. It had Lily Tomlin's autograph, and it also has gobs. Way more, I think one picture of, what's her name? Now I can't think. Liza Minnelli is too many, but he has collected dozens of them, and Barbara Streisand and Judy Garland. Can you see a pattern in this man's life? Yes, there was all sorts of pictures of beefy boys too. So, anyway. Am I done? As soon as I finish this, it's going to be $2 million. I'm getting to the end of my story at some point, but in addition to this guy's pictures, there was also, birth certificates and his parents' wedding license, marriage license, and a duplicate of the marriage license, and then some sort of, popey prayer thing. This guy was Catholic. And I did go online to search his name to, see if there was an obituary. But I couldn't find anything about him. So he will be lost to time. Except I'm going to keep this piece of paper because I like the back of it. What would that look like framed? If you see a resemblance between this kind of stuff and what Peter draws, it's not, we don't imitate each other, but we're sort of cut from the same cloth. This idea of horror vacui, can we, how much ink do we really need to do almost a complete covering of a piece of paper in a thoughtful way or meaningful way? No, meaningful sounds even more important than thoughtful. An artistic way sounds a little too grand. This is a pen I put in my pocket from my store. I was fixing it, thinking I'd sell it to someone, and I thought, N-O. N-O. On regular paper, it's much thinner. On this paper, it sort of isn't. I guess it can be kind of thin. It's just funny what paper allows the ink to do. So did this person's, I mean, I'm thinking about my own death. It's what you do when you get to be my age. You know, the time is running out. Will my niece and nephew know which pen is worth $100 and which is worth $10? Will they know that? Oh, they won't know that. The answer to that is no, they won't know that. Do I know the difference between a $10 pen and a $100 pen? Even I don't know the difference. You know, my valuing of pens, as you know, is based a lot on the nib that it has, and I like so many different kinds of nibs that other people don't like, that, like this particular nib I'm using right now, many people would say, you know, whatever, it's a Schaefer Feather Touch or whatever the hell it is. I think it's and a lot of you very sophisticated nib users and calligraphers and draftsmen and whatever else would probably pass it up too, because it isn't enough of anything to make you smile. You want it to, some people, not you, nor you, but some people want it, whatever the thing is, they want the very, very something. It has to be very, very broad or very, very flexible or very, very thin. It can't just be thin or flexible. It has to be very. Well, this one isn't very. It's quite fine and slightly flexible. And it's the slightly flexible line that also is of value to you. And you and you. You know who I'm pointing at without having to actually point. But there are more people out there that wouldn't give this pen the time of day. "Excuse me, sir," says the Schaefer. "Do you know what time it is?" Then you, looking at your watch, winding it a little bit. Studying the watch face. Put it back in your pocket. Nope, no clue. Wouldn't give you the time of day. I think I'm almost done. I think I can find an 8x10 glossy frame. Should I get rid of the tomato sauce stain there? No, I think that's part of the thing. I think that tomato sauce is important. So what should I call this? Maybe you can come up with a name. If a harlequin and a thunderstorm had a baby, would this be what it would look like? These sort of remind me of the deluge drawings of Leonardo da Vinci, where it's just this roiling, chaotic mass of curls and clouds. Yeah, I think I'm done. I'm even going to sign this one. Can I? Here. There. Done. This does not work. This is a Schaefer Touchdown. Does this one have the name? There's one that has a name, which I guess I changed the barrel. Because no matter how I screwed the barrel on, the name was in a funny at a funny angle. And that bothers me. It should be right here on top, or maybe right there on the bottom, but not like 38 degrees off the center line. Yeah, I kind of like that. I was thinking not to I was thinking, maybe what I should do with every pen I sell, I take a piece of paper, 4x6 or 6x8 or some 8x10 maybe, and do a drawing. Might be with the pen I'm selling the person, and include it with the pen. And the drawing has some value. May not be $1 million like the ones you find on my website, but it might be, worth $10, might be worth $20, might be worth $50. But it's yours for buying a $30 pen. And if you say, gee, there's this, I've looked through my electron microscope and I see a little tooth mark. But you can't see it with your naked eye, right? No. Well, don't look at it under the fucking microscope. I fixed it. You owe me $10 more. But I thought if I were to sell this pen, let's say for $60, I include a little drawing I did of it. And if you say, but there's this little tiny imperceptible scratch mark, I want it for less. You say, well, I gave you the drawing. The drawing is might be worth up to $1 million. Oh, okay. Never mind. What would I pay for this if Peter Draws had drawn this, or if someone else had drawn this? Do I like it enough to actually pay money for it? I don't know. Do I? Which way is up? I think this way is up. What would you pay? I'm talking to you. Right there. You know who it is. What would you pay for this? Look at this nice pen. On that pen, I also use this pen, a Parker 21. With its fancier 51-like nib. I'm thinking I may send this to Peter Draws for him to try out, just because it's close enough to a 51. I just don't have any 51s right now to send him, and I could send him this one, and this almost gets you the oomph of a 51. You almost have that feeling of actually using a 50. Or maybe I'll send him a 51, a real 51. Because I think the Johnny Two-Noted aspect of 51s and 21s are something that actually is really neat. And I can do this with any pen I own. I can do it with this one. But there's something about the 51 where that flipping it is really more logical. Does that make sense? I don't know. Does it make sense? Write your answers below. Bye.